Good evening, everybody. It's good to see you all here. Um, Wonderful to be a part of all of you, as always. This is my episode 4 of High Energy and Raw Power playlist. Um, I think a lot of these picks that I have tonight are a lot more, well, from my eyes and ears, I think some of these albums and songs are probably more rare that you wouldn't hear that most from most people these days. At least I haven't. And there's so many wonderful and special bands, albums, just songs that moreover never get to really see the light of day past the decade of the 80s. And then we had, of course, most of us know the resurgence of everything came back again mid 90s. And then by the time it was 2000, everybody and their grandma wanted to be new wave of British heavy metal, and every album just for the fucking sake of having it, whether it was good or not. It just had to be in that decade, and everybody just had to own it no matter what. To me, being, doing a lot of those Milwaukee Metal Fest and things like that, it always resonated so much to say, damn, man, no matter, the more in touch you are with your past, the more precise you are on your future, the more pristine things become, it's definitive how our heavy metal music really is. And I like my rock and Motown once in a while and all that stuff, of course. Just for the most part, I think all of you know me about that stuff. Whenever we do Twitch, what am I always doing? I'm always putting Tina Turner on in the 3 degrees because you don't get to really hear that stuff, on here because you get blocked, So it's kind of it's just my way. It's just how I am. But anyway, it really amazes me when I was going through, doing this episode 4, going through lists of like, man, what 15 can I pick for this episode? Maybe some bands or some albums I didn't get to play yet through the 80s, or maybe just make suggestions and have them played when Francesco does a playlist. But there really is so much rich underground heavy metal music from so many little independent labels in the 80s. I always brag about New Renaissance Records and stuff like that because it was the powerhouse, and you had Bonsai in Canada, Music for Nations, all those labels everywhere. And the core thing about all those labels, through time, it's refined the styles so much more past its potential. I believe most of those bands really probably didn't expect to go as far as it would, to be coming back decades later and playing again. And that says something really special about when the metal scene was really kind of flourishing across the world and hitting American soil, and showing us a lot of potential around the world. A lot of these other bands that essentially pick up other styles from their predecessors a year or two before. And the beauty about the internet, it's like I said before, it's that journey you take with your friends when you just walk to the record store, no matter the weather, whether it was snow and ice on the ground, it was 10 degrees out, or it was like 110, and you burn your ass off, but you travel with your friends and you make these adventures. And for a guy like me, being heavily in the comic books and horror and science fiction and stuff like that, and music was just a natural cornerstone of my whole cathedral of the arts. And it's the one I resonate best with, and it's probably the one I'm an idiot passant with for myself. I just always find something very good and energetic, always again and again and again and over. So, in celebrating, for me tonight, most of these bands, I want to give them, some credit and recognition. Maybe more so than it's already missing. I just don't hear too much about some of these groups anymore. Some of them are going to be obvious people. And some of the picks I did for it was like, well, because I thought those songs were very, very special in their albums or their discography, whichever you would say, whether they were rare recordings or bonus tracks or just a cut off the album that didn't really get too much attention, that I think that really holds a critical attribute of high energy and raw power. Whether it's a new wave of British heavy metal, if it's a crossover hardcore, if it's a death thrash or speed thrash or power, whatever the genre, I always found there's something so profound about those styles that really make our underground music what it is and just hold so strong, deep rooted into the crust of this earth to this day. Our ears bleed for it, our heart hungers for it, and we walk it. We love this. There's never been a better community of people through my life, like I've always said when I was doing the 80s, that music will really do for people, whether you're in the classic rock or metal or whatever it is. But really, music, it's the your ears are the window to the soul, and music's the thing that feeds it. And I'm the kind of guy, I can hear things, and I really can go back in time and see and hear the people that I was with at that time and remember my old neighborhood and things like that. I am very detailed about my life like that. And like I said it before, and it's true, music has been the best friend I've ever had in my life. It's never judged me. It's never told me I've been wrong. It's the thing that was empowering. It was my soul prayer. It was the thing that it gave me so much more confidence and imaginative influence. Really helping you step in the journey of life every time you take a footstep to that record store. So tonight I want to celebrate 15 songs that, and perhaps artists that I think are not too much talked about or recognized, and perhaps some songs I don't hear that much too. So this was a fun one to do. I think these ones are a little bit more rare. Some are going to be obvious, like I said, people, but thank you for sharing your time with me tonight. As always, your time is appreciated. You never get it back, and thank you for spending it with me. This first pick tonight, I just got to put this out there. I didn't put this album on my 1984 playlist. And Francisco, if you remember, I switched it like the night before. And I thought about that. I'm like, God damn, this band, this record, the two records that this band, Canadian band, put out really played. It did play a big impact, on my love and appreciation for just dirty, raw, underrated, underappreciated at the time period, criticized. No apologies with this band. This is what I like best about it. Its sound, song titles, everything. It has the best underground dirt and grime and energy cliches that you can have for the 1980s, I think. So hailing from Canada, man. This one dedicated to all of you tonight, because I think we can all bang our heads, stomp our feet, and just pound with this one from Canada. This is Pile Driver, Metal Inquisition.
sentence you to death now by guillotine. With the Metal Inquisition, we sentence you to death.
Yes. Just listen to that guillotine drop, you know, just chopping heads. I love that album so much. And obviously, Gord's look was a big influence. So that was I always liked that album cover so much. I thought it was awesome. I remember seeing so much reviewed, and a lot of critics that were used to review that album years ago, in like Cream Magazine and Cream Metal and all those like magazines in the 80s. I remember a couple of them really kind of shitting on that album. And, you know, when you finally get to hear them, and you just think, I think to myself, especially back then, it's like, who are these fucking people writing these reviews for these metal magazines? Because to me, here's the equivalent of what I see today that is worse than it was in the 80s, just in my view. I gotta say it, but that music magazine, what's it called? Metal Sucks, right there. As soon as it says Metal Sucks, I have no interest in that. I just don't. If anything, that's complete. I consider that a disgraceful title to put on a music that I love. I do. It's unattractive, and you know, and it makes me think like there's people like that writing these magazines back then. It's like, you know, it's like they hate the scene, but all they do is they write reviews about these albums, and they usually trash all the smaller label albums. The way I remembered things, man, they really trashed a lot of them. Every once in a while, the magazines would slip a couple by, like, you know, they were good. They weren't horrible reviews. They weren't real crazy, but they were good. And but Necrovore had a very good review when they had their 87 review for the Texas metal scene. I had that issue in Artshock. But I remember the Pile Driver got a lot of shit. But I mean, look at that album cover, you know? I mean, how many album covers today I think of that album cover inspired a lot of the other retro thrash albums that came out in the late 90s, early 2000s? A lot. I can't say if it's all, but I would definitely believe I'd put Metal Inquisition Pile Driver up there with responsible for people doing photographic, really, you know, all balls out, totally aggressive, picturesque album covers. I gotta give it to Pile Driver because it's an attractive trait. And the music speaks for itself. It's fucking wonderful. It's great, brilliant, just heavy metal music. No excuses, just raw power and high energy. So anyway, let me go into my number 2 here. Well, for this next band is, well, this pick, I mean, this is a band that just started the biggest genre today. And the trio bands from the 80s, they were always, to me, they were always had a very special prestige to them when they were three-pieced. You get your Motorheads and your Destruction, your Sodom, you know, At War, things like that. There's a prestige to it, but nobody had prestige like Venom. You know, one of the greatest influences of my life. Sparked an entire movement. What is this now? 40 some years after the fact? Still, you know, they're the ones that made black metal what it is. They made the term, okay? Bands like Bathory and such like that started to perfect it. And as the years went by in the 80s and the decades changed, the terms changed. I think that's just a sign of the times. That goes with people and the territory and the demographics of what's going on in, you know, at shows, clubs, the community of the metalheads in those areas. But there's no undisputed truth that Venom are the originals of black metal. They are. That term was never heard before until then, period. Just fucking period. It's never happened until then. But you know, one thing I always loved about Venom were all the extra songs they used to record and never made it onto their albums. And if memory serves me right, one of the biggest amount of outtake songs were done during black metal in 1982 when they recorded that album. It's like a whole bunch of them. I mean, I think they were literally on fire. I mean, they seemed like they were writing songs like that, you know. And then we got the assaults, which were brilliant. Those are like my favorite things in my Venom collection are all the assaults. And the only one I'm still missing is the Japanese assaults. The only one I don't have. But I don't have like $300 or $500 to buy an original one. I'm just not in that world, you know. I want it yet. It's on my Christmas. I want Santa Claus to give it to me, you know, or the Easter Bunny or somebody, you know. I don't know, rich Japanese woman has pity on me. I don't know. It's the only one I'm missing. But out of all the outtakes in Venom's catalogs, you know, I think this fucking song. I don't hear many people either talk about it or play it. I just don't hear it that much. So I want to give it some credit tonight for being a great outtake. And damn, do I wish this song made it on the black metal. But that album was already perfect to begin with, in my opinion. But anyway, this would have just been another little extra added, you know, energy and raw power per second, you know, extra, another little step. So from 1982's Venom outtakes, this song, Hounds of Hell.
In the magic pentagram, I grant satanic scenes. Call upon the elements, the lightning, blood, and rain. What is ritual, they think it is a game. Laughing, crying, never dying. Feel the earth crumbling. Synchronizing, perfect timing. Watch the heavens scream for the house of hell. From inside the pentagram, I see the sight of light. Up from it, all my visions come with eternal light. Starting for a bloodlust, I set the demons free. Go into the world and destroy everything you see. Nothing crying, never dying. See the earth crumbling. Synchronizing, perfect timing. Watch the heavens scream for the house of hell. Go!
Venom songs never get old. I love that song. There's so many great tracks from them during in their early years when they were just really, man, they were unstoppable. Venom for me have always been the definitive dark core of chaos in music. I mean, there's nothing before that, because it had everything about punk and rebellious spirit, aggressive attitude, the violence of it, the evil and satanic imagery, the occultism, raw power, high energy. And to me, Venom is the definitive core of that chaos in music. Salutes to Venom for that. I mean, there's so many great outtakes from them, but that one, I don't hear too many people talk about Hounds of Hell. It's one of my favorite tracks, but how can you pick a favorite Venom song? So difficult. That's a big debate, right? All right, people. Once again, for anybody that's showing up, thanks again for showing up tonight. If you're here, I'm hoping you're going to enjoy tonight. I'm trying to get things that are a lot more on the obscure end that I never really got to pick during the 80s episodes, and or albums that I think, are missed a bit, and songs that I think are very key for the influence of raw power and high energy in heavy metal music. So again, just thanks again tonight. We're on to number 3. So I hope they're, the familiars here, MP and Justin and Bloodstone and Rotten Punks, Megan, Ruby, Sherry, Benji, I just hope all you guys here, you can enjoy this. So I'm going to move on to number 3 now. This band, it's a native state band for me out of Pennsylvania. I played them on my 1988 show, and they are off New Renaissance Records. That's one of I think New Renaissance Records is the best underground heavy metal label had to offer for demo stage bands in the mid to late 80s. I think what Ann did with that label, giving a lot of those bands the light of day, whether it's demo songs or it's cuts from their album that never hit America or whatever the case may be. I mean, that's a lot of heart, soul for that. Wehrmacht being one of them, I love this album. Shark Attack. Anyway, so yeah, this next pick, number 3, New Renaissance Records picked them up, and the cover alone attracted me, just because of what it was. It was the 80s, nuclear war. The whole Russians gonna, everything, World War III still runs crazy, right? And this band, when I saw them, I flipped the album around, I saw the picture of them, total Mad Max. It's Conan the Barbarian. They look like Conan, like when he's the pit fighting scene. It gave me that feel like when Conan was in the pit with all his outfits. I mean, Predator with the blades. I was like, this is gotta fucking kill, man. Because I'm all about black leather studs, chains, and, all out fucking heavy metal debauchery at its best chaos. But this was a really great album. This, to me, this record, I know they did another one, but this was really the only one that I heard, but I love it, start to finish. This album, when I play it, I definitely play this album start to finish all the time. I don't think there's a bad track on this album at all. As a matter of fact, it's tough to really pick one off of here because I think highly so much of this band and all the content of it. But it's got brilliant Rob Halford type vocals to it. I mean, it's got the speed and aggression of your prime Slayer and your that sort of aggressive take on playing. That was so predominant for bands in the 80s, of course. Slayer was a benchmark for most, and they had the Motorhead element to it, and they had the new wave of British heavy metal element to it. They encompassed a lot of things, but in 1988, it's like they picked things up more. I consider them, my opinion, when I saw them and heard them, I was like, this is like, I was like power speed thrash. That's kind of how I took on this band, it's like a Judas Priest's upside down nightmare of a band. It's awesome. But out of Pennsylvania, man, from 1988, Holocaust, man, out of Pittsburgh. This song I picked, Manslaughter. Well, I love that album. I love that band. I never really got a chance to hear that newer album that they made. Somebody sent it to me, and I forget who sent it to me. I never had the chance to play it. It was on a copy disc. But that album, I have it on cassette. I have it on vinyl. I spin that album a lot, man. I don't think that's one of those bands I don't think got enough credibility, at least for the time period. 88, a lot of people is really starting to change their attitude towards music. Some bands were falling to the wayside that started in the decade. New ones were coming up and had, I guess, sort of other interests they were trying to shove in to the underground world. And, if you think about it, grindcore was starting to come up on the rise about 88, A lot of the South American bands were rearing its head up. So I found it very interesting that a band like Holocaust at the time, it was like out of place for really what the landscape was like in 1988, as far as I can remember it. Other people may have a different outtake of that if they're around in the time period doing, adventuring the heavy metal journey back then. So I give them a lot of credit, and they're definitely an influence on me. I love the sound. I mean, that is just high energy, man. That's the vocals alone, high energy. I mean, this is, these are the kind of things that I always hope that newer bands bring to the table to give a sense of something that's like that. And there definitely are some, but in this world, there's thousands of them. Every time you turn around, it's just new band and new band and new band and new band. It's like the norm anymore. I find that sometimes I find it's too distracting, in the sense that a lot of good things, like a band like Holocaust from the 80s, if there's a band that's like that now that maybe is sort of in a misplaced area, but holds the crucible elements of extreme underground music, could be missed by your pile of vomit like Cryptids and shit like that, these manufactured cookie cutter corporate bands that just, slopped into dumped into the fucking market, and they shit up the place, Nobody wants to walk in there anymore. But, like as I see most people, that, there always is room. I mean, there's room for always more. There is. I just wish that people that were in charge of things more were a lot more attentive. Especially if you're seeing bands that were gone for 30 years, 35 years, making these comebacks. You think he would say something to the fucking scratch money labels, like, you know what? Yes, these bands are, oh man, again, these bands are great and stuff, but you want to try to find new talent that plays a similar role, not trying to copy it, not stealing from it, but plays a similar role in the keeping the elements of that, that core rebellious chaos of extreme heavy metal music. And, my hero Lemmy, that's all he ever did. He said the music's got to piss off your parents, it's got to piss off everybody around you, it's got to offend people. And it's uplifting in a sense, because it does become your undisputed friend. So there you go. Once again, anybody else that's been popping in here, Persons, if you're in here, Iris, Bloodstone, Spirit World, all you guys, Jeff, Kerry, man, I don't know. Well, I hope all you folks are here and you're enjoying the show. To everybody else, Megan, I hope you're around. Yeah, and okay, we're going to move on to number 4 now. Interestingly enough, this next pick I have, this is a crossover band, and I do love hardcore crossover thrash bands. In the 80s, I mean, they were great. I mean, your Cro-Mags, your Chrome Suckers, Excel, all that stuff. It's great. Gnostic Front and Corrosion Conformity, all that stuff. It's great. There's a couple that were missing here and there in that mix. And this one band, I found, they already had it. They already had another album out, but I don't think it's so. I think what happened with this band is that first album didn't see the light of day in America till later. I think it was about a year or two later, after this album I'm going to play next. like when this album, it did, I remember it doing well. I remember getting, it was one of the rare occasions where this album in '88 did get good reviews and can stand up to the, the reviews that what it was describing and back it up. It was good. It was one of the bands that really did, it's like the writers actually matched the mark of the band in this case. Because I think writers, especially in New York and the Northeastern Seaboard, were a lot more, I guess, they had maybe, I guess, an important stake in the game, because I think a lot of these writers were, from that area, and this band is from that scene. And the crossover element of thrash into hardcore was so important. It's so important because Venom has it. You got all kinds of bands that have it. I mean, Lemmy used to say, he said, if you would close your eyes, listen to the old records, you would swear we were playing punk music. But back then, not today, but he said back in those days in 78, 79, 80, he used to say, if you closed your eyes and you listened to music, you would think it was punk's playing it. So it really does hold a very critical part of sound, high energy, and its raw power. It's that rebellious, chaotic spirit. But these guys here, I think they honed in on the mark with the crossover as they had power and energy, right? But they had a musical element to them that wasn't overdone. It's like it didn't try to outdo itself, but yet it innovated itself in their own right of writing. And what they just accomplished was, I think, one of the most unique crossover thrash albums of the 1980s. So out of New York, I believe they're out of New York, these guys. This is Prong off of their force-fed 1988 album, Freezer Burn. If you have heard Prong before, or haven't heard Prong before, that album, I think, is, if you like crossover albums from the 80s, even by today's standards, but at least for that time period, this one definitely holds some key connecting elements from the late 80s era of crossover, hardcore thrash. You can hear you can even hear a bit of a Motorhead-ish influence. I mean, how can you not? I mean, Motorhead and Venom probably, well, Iron Maiden too, of course, and Judas Priest and stuff in Saxon. But seriously, I tend to think that the Venom and Motorhead inspired bands that kind of, like, if they have that more rooted in their sound, they wind up being a lot more long lasting and appealing in its sound and quality of music and playing. But then again, maybe that's just me because that's the way I walk, right? Okay, to each their own, but that's my thinking of it anyway. So I hope you enjoyed Prong Freezer Burn off the Force Fed album. That was my crossover, one of my favorite crossover picks from the 80s. That album's a great album, start to finish. Number 5 here. This pick almost this band was almost made it onto my 86 list. I mean, if any of you, if you saw my 80s, when I was doing all that with Francisco had me doing the 80s, they weren't easy to kind of do because I used to keep changing stuff on and off. But this band was, this was on my chart, and I said, damn it, one day I got to give them some credit. I have to give it its due, man. I don't think the band's talked enough. I think people like maybe it's Spirit World, Rotten Punks, Bloodstoned, those guys. I think it might have been, if I remember right back then, maybe spoke a little bit or asked about this band. I think it might have been Spirit World. I'm not sure. Anyway, because I'm trying to roller deck in my head those episodes and who was there all the time. Maybe it was Mike or Mike Violet or Ben. I can't. Anyway, the hell with it. This was an 86 pick that didn't make it onto my 86 show. Europe, once again, in the 80s, were the best epicenter for taking heavy metal and all of its key attributes and really creating some of the best albums, bands, even for a small time period or a long-term one. But damn, their stamp in heavy metal history is just, I can't think of any other place in the world that can top what Britain and Europe has done for the metal scene in the 80s. I mean, I just can't. So much good stuff that was there that never saw the light of day in America. Like I used to say, you read more about the bands than you got to hear them. And when you finally heard them, like, damn, if I wish I could have heard that, way back. But in that time period, no internet. You had to walk to your record store. You had to find it. You had to order things. And when you're a teenager in high school, money becomes an issue sometimes. Anyway, this band's out of Belgium, and you all know I love Belgium for acid. Obviously I could play acid start to finish because Kate's a high influence for me. The band Acid's a high influence, period, everything. But those little countries in Europe, they spawned some great stuff. Killer was another great band out of Belgium. And this next band, well, as far as I'm concerned, I think they had 2 really good albums. It's their first and their second albums. First album, See You in Hell. It's funny, Grim Reaper had the same title, but that's the title of the first album. But you see the cover and it throws you off because it has that quirky artwork sort of thing. It's like kind of, it's like, it looks cool, but you're not sure because the album cover don't look as cool as Voivod or Nasty Savage or Whiplash or anything like that, and when you're a teenager, me, loving comic books and art, art played a big part of me and all my friends growing up in depicting certain albums. It's just the undisputed truth. Your album art really said a lot about what that band was going to be. Then you flip the other side, you start reading the song titles, and that was like hint number 2. So I'm glad I got to hear them when I did because this band deserves a lot of credit. This band started out as a punk hardcore band, influenced by GBH and The Exploited, Discharge. I think 2 or 3 of the members, when they split their punk band up, they formed a heavy metal band and they came out with Crossfire. So this album here, out of Belgium, Crossfire, this is off their second attack, Atomic Wall.
Yeah!
Now, didn't I say this was high energy and raw power? Crossfire, give that to you. Man, it's a great album. I know that I probably had to revisit some of the other albums too, but the first two albums, man, I think they're great. They're great heavy metal albums. To me, you can absolutely hear the punk influence, the hardcore influence from Great Britain. Your GBH, your Discharge, your Exploited. You can hear that mixed with your Motorhead, your Judas Priest. You can hear that, your Slayer and Metallica rips. You got to think of the time period and the mix involved, man. You get the right guys in there with that mindset, and fucking bam, you get a great speed heavy metal thrash album like that. So I don't think Crossfire gets really enough credit too much, and I'm just kind of sorry I couldn't do top 20 when I was going through the 80s list, but the boss only said 15, but they would have been in there. You know what, too, Ruby, if you're here, that's a song for you. That's a Ruby song. Crossfire, it's a Ruby song. Okay, so move along here. Number 6 on my list tonight here. I gotta say, this band, when I saw it in the store, well, I saw it advertised, small advertisement. Most of these little advertisements for these bands were black and, they were black and white ads kind of on the side columns. You remember how the old magazines used to be? They were just, you see the black and white ads, but some they had the side column ones, and I remember seeing this on a side column ad, and it might have been an Aardschok or Metal Hammer, maybe. It might have been Metal Hammer. I don't know. Anyway, there was a video. There's like an official video, like live concert of the album being recorded at the same time they made the album. And, I liked the name. I thought it was cool. It was a picture of the band on the cover. I'm like, it fucking looks cool. I like that. It's dark looking. I like the title. I'm flipping around, look at the song, reading the song titles. I'm like, this is kind of a little more. I'm like, okay, this could be like a Saxon, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, except sort of band, maybe something like that, in those veins, maybe a little speed here or there, who knows. So I picked it up and bought that thing home. And I remember I was with my friend Rich Techner from high school, my freshman year buddy. Me and him were the ones that used to bring the Catholic school kids all of our heavy metal gems into school. And then I would be the one getting detention for it, not him. Rich, you ever see this? You were lucky, man. They had me pinned the moment I got off that fucking 66 bus. There was Sister Patricia Flynn. Wait, right at that goddamn door for me to come in there, man. See if I had a heavy metal shirt on, if I had music magazines. Anyway, I got this album with Rich at Tower Records downtown in Philly. Fell in love with it. And I think more noticeably now, it gets a little bit more attention, I think, these days. But I always thought, Metal Church's first debuted album, for my liking, is the definitive sound of a heavy metal album. Most people will say Iron Maiden or Judas Priest, and I get that, and I respect it. Boom. Okay, 100%, I respect that. Metal Church, for me, was the step up of that, though. And hearing this album in '84, it's funny, the first thing I thought of was, what if Rush was a heavy metal band? And I think it would have been this. Because the playing and the songwriting really had more of its progressive, a lot more bit here and a bit there. It was like really thought out jams. But I gotta say, it's the sound of the album. I mean, the songs, they sound gigantic, huge, powerful songs, very heavy. As skilled and intricate as it was, it had heaviness to it and clarity. They were great songs, man. The guitar just cuts through the air. It is such a heavy metal saber cutting through the wind. I love the guitar playing on this album. Man, I gotta say it. I love it. Off the End the Cannons of Destruction Had Begun album, off of 1994's Warlord album, Black Mass. I think that album is a really fantastic sounding album, start to finish. If you could, if that style is your style, I mean, how could you not say that that doesn't have both raw power and high energy in it? I mean, the playing alone, the energetic level of the playing, it's phenomenal. I think it's, and I think Warlord, one of those bands that were like here today, gone tomorrow in the 80s. That band should have done a lot more in the 80s, I think. I think maybe this will get some people upset. I don't know. But I think that band is 10 times better than Man at War. I just do. There's only one Man at War album I like, and that's In the Glory Ride. Not saying, I don't know. I just think for the most part, I always found Man at War's albums too clean sounding for my taste. I think Warlord, that sound they had, it was heavy sounding. The guitars sounded heavy. It didn't sound tinty. And all the songs on the album just really go great together. It's a fantastic song. It's a journey, start to finish, that album. I recommend it if you never heard the whole thing or don't have it. I do recommend getting. It's a great album. You can put that thing on. You can get into a fucking zone with that. And for the record, I played that whole record on my bus down here. Just last week. Fridays I usually put on heavy metal on the bus in the morning and in the afternoon now, because down here I can get away with a little bit more. More people are rock and roll, heavy metal orientated. So yeah, I'll play more Saxon and things like that on the school bus stuff now. It's a little different than Philly, but anyway. So that was Warlord at number 6 here. So I'm on to number 7 here. And don't you think for a minute, my dear friends, that I'm ever going to forget and leave the ladies out of this. If you know me, you know me. Okay? This number 7, well, this one is for the ladies. And this specific high energy, chaotic character holds nothing. I think she's nothing but high energy. I mean, yes, there's power, but the energy level of this chaotic soul of the nut stellar wizard with her instrument, it's very inspiring. She inspired me. I think she's extremely entertaining. I put her one step. I put her behind Wendy O. Williams when it comes to the chaotic energy and what she's want to do. Nobody tops Wendy O. Williams with energy. I mean, naked with a mohawk, blowing up cars with dynamite and chainsaws and bombs and shit, and then nobody's beating Wendy. But my lady here, man, one of the most awesome guitar wizards on the planet, and I love her to death. She's such a goddamn nut. I love her. So this is for you ladies here, man. This is all high energy for you. Out of New York City. It's the crazy, that one and only, the Luna Vachon of heavy metal. It's the Great Cat. And this is off her Beethoven on Speed album. This is Funeral March. I love the Great Cat. That's for me, that is the most definitive chaotic woman in music, in heavy metal music, I'll say. It's the embodiment of it. Wendy Williams and her, they're two sides of a coin. But Wendy still tops. Anyway, that was a fan made video. I made that video, so I don't think we'll get in trouble with that one. I hope not. I don't think so. Anyway, so that was my little tribute to the Great Cat. I wish I would have got the goddamn party invitation, because I think I've told you all this before. I was actually invited to a birthday party from her sister, because I was going to try to hire her to play leads on the second Bloodstorm album. I really was. I was going to give her a couple grand to play on the album, because at the time I had it, so. And nobody, even thought of her anymore. Nobody just didn't. Nobody cared about the Great Cat. I mean, most people. It seems like most people don't. But boy, man, for the late '80s, that period, she was nothing but fucking volcanic, stellar thunder and lightning madness. She is madness. Love it. So that's my little off to the ladies for high energy tonight. All right, here. My number 8 spot. All right, I got to put this one out to my boss there, Francisco, and any other lovers of hardcore crossover music, because this next pick really inspired me more from my brother Frank and his friends having these albums. Well, there's only 2 that they really had. They're the only 2 I really ever heard, but this album alone is the one I like the best from this band. But I got to contribute this to my brother and his friends Tony, Mike, Chuck, Rick, and Brian, for playing this band a lot on their jam box. You have to get like 8 fucking double D batteries to play the goddamn tapes. Remember those days? They was like the size of a TV set walking around. I miss those radios, man. That's all I ever did is play tapes. That's all we all did back in those days. But this was a great crossover tape that always circulated on my brother's friends' silver and chrome radio. Used to sit on our outside porch all the time. We used to spin that fucking thing. Playing stickball, all kinds of shit, in the streets of Philadelphia, man. This album used to blast, along with everything else we played, the Whiplash and everything else. This one, Francisco, to all you people that appreciate crossover music, hardcore music, this is a band I really haven't heard anybody just mention or talk about, or even have it come into light again. When it comes to crossover bands, we all have our agnostic fronts and our COC and Exploited and all the rest of them, Crumbsuckers, Excel, Chromags. We know all that. This band, I don't think, gets that much attention. And they're out of Canada. They're out of Vancouver, I believe. Vancouver, Canada. And they were awesome. I thought they were great. They were like. They were so much like an English hardcore band. I loved it. This album, I think, was so popular for the time period. It's a very political album cover, too. This is a great crossover record. I miss bands that had simplicity to the crossover hardcore. Now it's like it's weird. They got to go into like these instruments, like they got to come up with like a fucking electric diesel harp or some shit like that to try to make things relevant. Nah, just give guitar, bass, drums, and angry voice, man. You got the makings of a raw power, high energy, hardcore / crossover band. So, coming out of Vancouver, Canada tonight, this is salutes to you, Francisco, and all the rest of you that love crossover hardcore bands in the 80s. I think a very underappreciated band. I hope you can enjoy this one tonight. This is Dayglow Abortions off the 1986 Fetus a Fetus album. It's called Stupid Song. Well, Francesco, my dear friend, that's a little salute to you, boss. And I just saw Carl. Hey, man, it's good to see you, buddy. And I know you appreciate hardcore crossover too, my friend. That's for you too. Good to see you, Carl. Everybody else, man, Spirit World Booge, James, Evan. I mean, my God, it's cool to see a lot of you folks here, man. And Spirit World, all of you guys, Ruby, Megan, all of you, man, Iris, Sherry, Persons. I mean, every my God, Michael, I think, is in there. But anyway, it's cool. I hope you guys are enjoying this. So I personally think that day-glow abortions, especially, I'm trying to remember what the first album was called. I think it was bought out in '81. Was it Out of This World? Was that what it was called? Out of This World, the first album. I'm trying to remember the name. I remember one of them was Can't Take a Joke, I think, was another one of their albums. But this one, Fetus to Fetus, my brothers and their friends had that thing playing on rotation a lot, along with the Crumbsuckers and Cro-Mags and Crozier Conformity. That's just, what it was. Yeah, when I hear that album, all I could think of is, man, we used to play stickball on the railroad across the street from us with that boombox going. It would just bounce off the walls. We had a parking lot across the street. That parking lot was behind it was a junkyard, but that parking lot was for Stetson High School, and then the railroad was there, and our house was right on the corner. And my brother's friends and my friends used to commute there because you had the railroad to hang out on, and you had the parking lot to hang on. The junkyard was behind it, so you can make all the goddamn noise you wanted, man. My mom and dad were cool. I'm very lucky. I had very cool parents that, as long as I wasn't burning anything up, man, or stealing off of people, my folks were fine with it, man. But I could still, I can still remember the fucking smell of the rust coming off the boxcars that used to sit on those tracks. What a cool time, man, be alive with that music. Anyway, I'm going to take another step now, back over to Europe. I think, bar for none, I believe Germany's probably got the most, not me. I mean, maybe it's debatable. I'm going off the cusp here. I'm just going off of just how I'm seeing things, how I'm remembering it. I don't think a country's produced as many really great critical underband extreme heavy metal bands in the 80s than Germany has. I mean, Belgium's there. I know there's some in France and Italy, but I think Germany's probably got the most. Of course, you can't forget your Scandinavian friends to the north too, but I think Germany encompasses probably the most. I mean, when me and my brother, we were roadies for Destruction when they did the 2001 comeback, when they did that All Hell Breaks Loose album they did on Nuclear Blast Records. My brother and I were we were roadies for them, and I got to drive Destruction and their manager, and I think two of their road guys were with us. My brother drove the equipment truck because at the time he had the CDL. I didn't have a CDL yet, so he was able to drive it. But I can. It's funny because I can always, remember just talking to Mike and Schmier both about a lot of this music and stuff, and they always pointed to Metallica and Venom. They did. They pointed to it. I don't know if they would deny that now, but back then they definitely pointed to those bands, and Slayer, of course, too, and you could tell, you could hear it, but it's cool hearing it from bands that right there at that time period, what the mindset was like. So many of those bands, and it's proven over the years how really outstanding a lot of these albums in the 80s from Europe really were. And then when the whole resurgence thing came back, and you get to finally hear these bands again on disc because you never had them before. And I never got to hear these. I got to hear these guys by the Protect from Reality album. And, I thought that was a good album, but one of their earlier albums were way better, of course. Unique vocals, too. I love it. Love it. And this band, it was one of the bands that didn't make it, onto my my 85 playlist, unfortunately, because there's one of many. But, man, this band deserves nothing but massive respect and credit. I mean, the vocals are even more unique than Schmier's, I think. Even more than Udo and more than I forget the guy's name from Iron Angel. I forget his name. Dirk, I think might have been his name. But anyway, this guy on his own had his own unique sound with his voice too, as funny as it is. I'm astounded by it. I think it's outstanding, especially the time period. So, to give finally some credit where credit is due, another wonderful German band coming out in 1985 with their Metal Revolution album. I'm sorry. This is Germany's Living Death. This is called Grip in a Heart. the voice. You know, when you hear it, it's like a thrash metal. If Udo is more thrash speed metal. Udo had a huge influence, didn't he? He influenced me, definitely. You know, when vocals had that much energy like that, it's so pronounced. You know, with the accent and everything. There is a brilliance to that, I think, when bands portray that in their songs. It definitely creates its own charisma, and it's right. Anything that's like that, that the way I see things, if something's going to contribute that's high energy, or it's raw power, it's complementary to what you're doing, and you got everybody synced and locked in. I think these bands come up with phenomenal albums, songs, and just careers, whether they're short or long. You know, Living Death, I think, is one of those bands. They just really never got as much deserved credit as they should have. I mean, most of these bands, of course, today do, thanks to the internet and Facebook. It's such a two-edged sword, man. But hey, man, they're here today, and so are we, folks. And it's great to continue enjoying these songs with people like yourself. So I hope you enjoyed Living Death, man. I do. I love them. Metal Revolution, that's my favorite album. Great band, recommend it, you know. And Vengeance from Hell is great. Their first. They had a song also that appeared on Speed Metal Volume 2, Hellpike. And I think Hellpike is off Vengeance from Hell album, I believe. And Carl, I know you're a fan of Living Death too. So hope you enjoy that, Carl. All right, here. Well, we're going to stay on the continent of Europe, and we're going to go north. Okay, we're going to go north of Germany here. And I played these guys before, more than once on my 80s episodes. But the truth be told, it's because their one album, well, it would be what, their second album, was such an influence on my life in that time period when it came out. I mean, what, I think I was 12 when that album came out, but I didn't hear it when I was 12. I heard them about 84. Yeah, that's when most of these bands started to hit. Most of those stores was about 84, 83, depending. But you had to know where to go and order it and all that kind of shit. Most of the stuff hit 84 in Philadelphia at that time period. We had some good record stores there. So anyway, this band here, it's their second album. I mean, it was seeing it at the end of Ultimate Revenge, Exodus, Venom, and Slayer. Combat Records introducing all those albums. I saw that fucking album cover and I had to have that band. The album title and the cover sold me. And when I heard it, once again, I'm like, man, I think the music outdoes what the appearance is. You know what I'm saying? It's those things went hand in hand. Like I said back then, anybody from that time period, I think, would agree. The album cover and the titles would sell you. They really would. And then I think some of these bands started getting a little smart to that shit in the late 80s and fooling some of us. Anyway, but this band sure didn't fool me. You got everything you asked for and more. This is why I appreciate this band. And maybe geographically and the way the states are, that, you know, underground music just wasn't that friendly to international bands, that small bands with secondhand labels. They just weren't. But it was people like us that kept it going, and people like you here today that are going to keep it going, and you do. I think this band is best of. To me, they were like a Judas Priest, Slayer, Metallica, because they came from that time period. And the first album really reflects a lot of European interpretation of New Wave of British heavy metal. I think these guys do. And I find their album and their sound a bit unique, especially Abe DeMartini's voice. It's unique, but it's very good. The first album really gets no attention. I played them before on the 82 episode. I'm going to play another song that I think is great off of this album. And if I remember right, I think even Ruby enjoyed this and already knew about it. Quite a few people. I believe, if I remember right, I think there was a couple European tyrants on here that were happy to hear this. So if you're here tonight and you heard 82 and you like the 82 playlist, you're probably going to like this one then, man, because this band, I think, is high energy and raw power. This is just great Scandinavian heavy metal brilliance, I think, at its best in 1982. So out of Finland, this is Oz. Off the Heavy Metal Heroes album, this is Secondhand Lady. I think that's great raw power for heavy metal. That album's a great raw power heavy metal representation of Europe at the time. And that's Finland's contribution, man. I love that band. It's, you know, it's such a great simple song. It just pounds, but that's the idea of it. I like things that are intricate. Yeah, I do, but nothing beats a great rhythm. That's why I love AC/DC so much, and I know my boss Francisco loves them too. I say it all the time, and it's true, man. Malcolm Young said it the best. If you don't have a lick, if you don't have a hook in a song with the beat that matches, you don't have a song. It's got to be able to make your head shake, your fist pump, or your feet tap. Because if you don't do those things, you're not going to remember it. I mean, all right, I can't say everybody, but me. That's how I roll, man. If I can't remember, it ain't worth listening to a second time. That's just the way I see it. This band, I don't think Oz got enough credit. Fire and the Brain did outstanding, I think, for most thrashers, especially in my neck of the woods in the 80s. It really did. All my friends had it. We all had a copy of it. We either taped it from, I know I had my own copy. My buddy Frank Long was the other one out of my friends who had money to get, you know, tapes. He probably had more tapes than I did. You know, I mean, the essence of raw power and high energy, it's got to be able to stand the test of time where it really doesn't matter. For people like us, at least people like me, it means everything. Because if I didn't have it, I don't think I would like the person. I don't think I would like to be any sort of person. I can't see nothing but this, you know? It's the most relatable music. It's like having another limb. It just resonates so much, man. It really is a piece of the makeup of just what my soul is. You know, if you can't take possessions from Earth, of course you can't. But the ancient Egyptians believed you can. As long as maybe you could take sound with you, I'd be happy with that. You know, if you could take the sound that your soul collects through the years, that's an interesting thought in itself, I guess. You know, and this is one of the albums I play once in a while on the school bus now too. It's this album, so my kids are getting it. And as a matter of fact, this next band I'm playing gets a lot of play on my school bus when I was up in Philadelphia, and now that I'm down here in the Pensacola, Florida area. You know, the 70s were a great decade of music too. Wonderful rock bands. I mean, a lot of progressive things. It's that decade, you know, there's a whole lot of new things going out and coming in. England, in my opinion, saved rock music. In my opinion, the late 70s in England saved rock music. I think so. Led Zeppelin were already not the same, you know. They weren't even playing anymore. I don't think. I don't think they were playing by the end. I'm trying to remember if they were even playing because Bonham passed. You know, and then the Who was gone. I love the Who. When Keith Moon went, they fell to the wayside. You know, so there was other bands that picked up where they left off. And I'm trying to get to a point here, I guess. You know, Motorhead, of course, did. There's no denying Motorhead saved rock. But I think this next band out of England also saved rock music and took the moniker of heavy metal, just like Iron Maiden did. But this band, I think, took a little bit to the other three and Judas Priest. This band, I think, took a little bit more of a backseat to all those aforementioned. And when in heavy metal realm, that is. I'm not saying Venom. Venom's a whole different entity. But there's Motorhead, okay, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden. I know your biggies. And, you know, Black Sabbath's still around. And now I think this band contributed at the end of the decade of the 70s, but just didn't really get to the light of day until about, their second and third album. And I think this album probably doesn't get maybe enough appreciation as I would think. Again, I could be wrong, folks, but this is just how my ears have been hearing things over the year. I love this band. They're a high influence for me. Love it. Biff's voice is outstanding. I love his voice. The riffs and the drumming are great. I mean, Pete Gill played in Motorhead for a little bit, for fuck's sake, man. Doesn't get too much better than Saxon. 1979, they did their debut album, man. It's a goddamn slamming hard rock heavy metal album. If you haven't heard it, start to finish, it is a fantastic album. This, I think, is one of the greatest songs on the album. It's definitely a fist banging, fucking high energy crushing song, man. Stallions of the Highway. What a fantastic album, 1979. 8 years old, man. I wish I would have heard that album when I was 8. But I was still jamming at the time to Who, AC/DC, you know, those records, Kiss, Led Zeppelin, Van Halen, even Boston, all that. You know, it would have been awesome to have been able to hear Saxon back then, but didn't get it, you know? It just didn't happen. But fuck, man, phenomenal. I just don't think that album gets enough credit for help turning the decade of new wave of British heavy metal over. I mean, it does. Saxon gets credit. Of course they do. Of course. But I think that album in 79, damn, you know, how many heavy metal bands were there? Like a real definition of heavy metal. And of course, Judas Priest, like I said, they were there, and Iron Maiden, and yeah. But then those bands like Saxon, man. Fuck. You know, it's great too, because getting to hear them when you spin these records again and again, aside from their popular end catalog of albums, it feels really a real sense of satisfaction, you know? When you think of the time period and how music really defined and shaped things, it's outstanding. bands like Saxon helped, they were part of help born, giving birth to bands like Metallica. And, and it's in a way. But yeah, okay, 1979, that was Saxon's The Eyes of the Highway off their debut album, man. So now we're going to head back into Germany again. The year 1985. I played this band on my 84 playlist for their first album. One of my favorite bands. That's what I mean about Germany. Like I said earlier, there's so many great bands that came out of Germany. Damn. You do a whole day of just German thrash metal albums and speed metal and death metal albums, right? Great band. But this was really the last album, I liked. And I really thought it was a powerful, it was more, yes, it's thrash, but I think this album, I think, leaned more towards a power metal-esque, like a thrash power sort of set in together with this album. But it had all the elements of high energy and raw power. A lot of great, wonderful songs start to finish off of this record, too. But, this one song in particular I picked, I think it's just a really heavy song. I would love to hear what you people think, and I hope you think it's just as heavy as I think it is. And I think it deserves a listen to, a spot. The record's a great record, but I think, hearing a song gives a little bit more defined spices of what the album's content is made of. So, 1985. This is Running Wild off the Branded and Exiled album, Gods of Iron.
Sacrifice
Yeah, Gods of Iron is definitely, I think, is a very heavy song, man. Brendan Exile is a very good album, start to finish. Change of Leather at the end, that's always cool. That was like a cool little, like a sing along, like a heavy metal sing along. That was always a great one too. Chains and Leather Forever, great stuff, man. But I always thought that was a cool song, man. It's just really heavy. The kicks going and all. Raw power, man. Raw power band. Yeah, they changed after that. I can remember, and during those years, if you changed off the norm of what you did, that attracted me and my friends to those bands. If once they went out of the normal realm of what they did, you left it. At the time, you let it go because there was always something really good and new coming on the horizon during that decade. It was like such an untouchable time period. But it did. It created a lot of great genres, and the most relevant today that keep everything going. I mean, we got to celebrate all these bands and songs and albums, things that are just kind of missing off that I think they're missing out of the normal spectrum of things these days. So, hopefully you're enjoying these, and yeah, you're liking what you're hearing so far. We're up to number 13 now. No surprise here, folks, because this next pick is also from Germany. And it's another one of those bands. You see the album cover, it looks cool. It looks kind of weird, the album cover, but it's still, the name is fucking cool. And it's a nice, simplistic black and white album cover. You turn the back of it around like, oh, they're punk rocker dudes in leather. This is fucking awesome looking, man. This looks great. Song titles look great. I didn't hear it till way later, but the imagery of it, I remember seeing this album advertised, and it was one of those albums that a lot of critics would shit on. I remember that. I remember a lot of critics shitting on this album. And then when I finally got to hear it, just a few years after it came out, I saw it in a secondhand record store off of South Street. 3rd Street Jazz and Rock had it in the bin. I think I bought that album. I think I bought it for like $3 or $4. Like, nobody wanted it. And I was like, holy shit, it's that album. It's that German band that I've been seeing advertised, and here it is for a couple bucks out of my pocket. And I was like, wow, this is great. And I was like, how do people shit on this album? I thought it was great, So once again, Germany does it, man. Like I said, there's something about Germany in the 80s. They're probably the most consistent. And no coincidence that I find out either that the vocalist, I believe, of the band was a childhood friend of Schmier's from Destruction, because he sounds an awful lot like Schmier himself on this album. The music alone, you can tell. It must have been close neighbors too. Maybe they played together. Who knows? Anyway, great album, great band. I think they deserve some credit and an ear. If you haven't heard them tonight, you're going to hear a song now. I think this is one of their cool songs. You could definitely tell they were a punk band before they turned metal. It's German Venom punk rock. That's the best way I could describe them. So here we are, 1985's debut album, Necronomicon. This is Magic Forest.
Strike! Strike! The master chart. Draw! Draw! The flaming sword. Crown child and conquering lord. Horus of Asia! Whistling through the trees.
I thought they were such a cool band. They were such a cool band, very underrated, under the radar for so long. I barely ever hear them mentioned. But that album, it's hell, man. If you closed your eyes and you didn't know what it was, you would swear it was a Destruction album you didn't hear before. That's exactly how I thought of them when I heard it. I couldn't believe I was hearing that band. I was like, this is like Destruction. And then, like I said, when I found out way later that the one guy in the band was a childhood friend with Schmier, it made sense. I'm like, okay, it makes sense. So I get it, you know, a lot like well, you know, anybody that grows up together and they wind up in a band, or they wind up in a different band on the other side of the block, there's a lot of similarities if you're like this, you know, if you're buddies. But very cool though. I just think that that album, it's a really great, underrated, underappreciated black German death thrash album, a punk German death thrash. That's what it's like to me, you know. But it's got the mystical elements of heavy metal because, you know, I think of the time period: Red Sonja, Conan the Barbarian, Sword and the Sorcerer, Beastmaster, Deathstalker, and all those movies and stuff, Kroll and all that. I mean, it has all those things, which most of those bands all did too, because it definitely resonated with me. And there was quite a few people like me too. Even when I went to Saturday art school, there was other people there. They liked the rock music and everything, but they still like Judas Priest and, you know, Scorpions and all that, Iron Maiden, and you know, then some of them got into Metallica, not too many because of the time period, but there was always people looking for something heavier to get into. I just like how it all kind of came together with a lot of these bands and a lot of the attributes that come visually with heavy metal and with the occult, which in itself does help inspire you to say, well, what the hell is that they're talking about? When you're a young man or a young lady, you're like, damn, you know, I love what I'm hearing. I'm reading, it's cool. I like to look, I gotta know more about this. What's more about it? And it drives you to get more interested in it, and it does, and it worked on me. So Necronomicon, I think, was a great band, underappreciated, and wonderful album. So I hope you enjoyed that one if you never heard them before. All right, number 14, 2 more to go, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back in America now with this band. This band wound up on New Renaissance Records, and 3-piece band. I think out of all the New Renaissance bands, they were one of the bands that got the most slack. They got the most, not slack. They got the most, not slack. They got the most flack. They got the most shitty feedback. They were one of those bands on that roster that either got negative reviews or they got none. And when I heard them, I didn't understand the negativity part at all. I was like, they have all the juicy increments of early punk, hardcore, your Discharge, GBH, Exploited, but you mixed in with your Slayer and Metallica and all the other greats from the early 80s, mid 80s, coming into view. And then these guys, I think, in a way, to me, they were like a more underground creator in America. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's just kind of how I saw these guys. They reminded me more like an American style creator sort of band, but had a lot more punk into it, a little bit more punk into it. Definitely, they're a high energy band. I mean, it's high, it's thrash, great thrash music. I don't hear the band talked about that much. I don't think they're given any credit at all for being a good underground thrash band in the mid to late 80s. And, but I think they're a great band and deserve a little credit. And I'm going to plug them tonight. And I hope you enjoy them too if you never heard them before. So out of Massachusetts, I think they're out of Boston. Megan, this is close to your neck of the woods, dear Megan. This is Seth Putnam's first band with Mark. This is Executioner off their 1986 In the Name of Metal album. This song, Death by the Blade.
Executioner
Well, that was Executioner out of Boston, man. 1986 in the Name of Metal album. Their first record. I thought it's a great record. Start to finish, man. It's just mad, ripping, chaotic, punk thrash. It's nothing but speed and chaos, man. It's great. I think the album is definitely one that you would have probably had to be there to probably the right place at the right time to get your hands on that album back then, probably. But I remember the cover turned a lot of people off. Like I'm saying about cover art, and it's very true. It definitely turned people off with covers. But man, you take into account the song titles too, and then by the time that album came out, you start to realize that maybe these bands can't afford, your Joe Patagnos or or Ripkins and who else? Just popular artists, Repka and all them guys. I mean, it's these guys probably had the budget this stuff, if probably not by themselves. The labels only had X amount to do, so that made it so much more underground and overlooked, and underappreciated. I think that album is an underappreciated, aggressive thrash, speed thrash album, death thrash. I'd say. I guess it would be speed death thrash for the time period. The way that I would describe that in its time period. Yeah. So there you go, Executioner, Death by the Blade. Last song for the night. As I always say, there's really never enough words to put into the gratitude of your time spent with me, hanging out, listening to these songs, and just enjoying heavy metal music, whether it's as popular as Saxon or Slayer, of Venom, Iron Maiden, Motorhead, whatever, all the way to bands like Necronomicon, Executioner, and bands like that, and Crossfire. I say it all the time. This community that we have it's I definitely think it's a main artery to the American scene, in a sense that it does keep enough of us connected and interested, not just in music, but with each other, sharing the experience of how we look at songs and albums and bands. I think it's great. And, it leaves open debate, and it leaves new thought and new idea. And I think that that's great. Part of way of reinventing yourself in your craft is being able to discuss and critique with others, especially when it comes to your own work. I don't mind putting myself out there, either emotionally or not. I don't mind. But if I didn't, it's being passionate about what you love. You're going to stand by it no matter what. Thank you for standing here with me tonight, and I hope you enjoyed this episode 4 of Raw Power and High Energy. So for the last choice tonight, this was a difficult one, and I think I changed this at the last minute on Francisco because I always have these toss-ups of what to do. But I had to think about it, and I thought this band would be a good one to end the show with I guess one of the definitive ideas of a band that I think really missed the mark on such great potential for the American metal scene in the 80s. I think they got swept under the street curb, kicked in the sewer. But I remember seeing it advertised, like I've been saying this whole show. A lot of these bands, a lot of these albums, you should see them advertised a lot. And shitty write-ups on a lot of them. Not all, but there's a lot of shitty write-ups on them. Never saw a bad write-up about this band, but I seen it advertised. Barely saw it around until way later when things get put back in the CD format. And getting to hear them again. I remember being at one of the Texas Death Fest that Bloodstorm played. I think Ruby was there. Iris, I know, not Iris. Oh God, Allie. I think Allie was there. Carl, you were there. Gas Mask Records were there. Maria and the French guy was there. We were playing Crocus and stuff like that. And I can't remember who it was that pulled this tape out. Maybe it was Ruby. I'm going to go with Ruby because she's a lot up to par with a lot of the stuff too, like I am. And she was there for like all them shows we did. But, this album always stuck in the back of my mind as a really great underappreciated band and an underappreciated sort of time period where they should have gotten more recognition. I think this is a great band. If you put it together, to me, I think it is like, it's Iron Maiden, Motorhead, Slayer with hardcore and punk mixed into it, infused into it, but the power metal Rob Halford, highly influential style vocals. Probably more like Rob than anybody else, more like Rob Halford this. And I think that really goes great in thrash metal music just in general. I mean, come on, Free Will Burning, we play that all the time here on the show. Just everything. This album, this is an EP. These guys are out of California. This album, I think if you haven't heard the band, I think you should give this band a better listen to, at least this album, anyway, the EP, because this is the one I know the best. I know they have another album they did, I think in 86, I forget the name of it, it's a full length, and then it kind of fell off the radar for a while, and I've seen them surface years later. This is what I'm saying, people retro bands all over again. And I think retro in this band makes sense, especially this EP. If you play it, I think it stands definitely on its own conviction of high energy and raw power. Thank you all. This song goes out to all you tonight for appreciating underground, underappreciated heavy metal bands, albums, and or songs that aren't acknowledged that much. So tonight I'll leave you with this, my dear friends and tyrants. Thank you so much, Kamoa J. So, last song for the night to all of you. Thank you so much. This, out of California, off their 1984 EP, Metal Without Mercy. This is Ruthless, Gates of Hell.
The Prince of Darkness summons me to bring a message to all of thee. Curious and born, to learneth how, for he'll meet you all at the gates of hell.
All right. Just jumping in here real quick to say thanks for watching. Another great playlist by Chris. I have turned on the Twitch, so if you want to go over there right now, ask some questions. It'll be kind of like a little after show, after party, something like that. So yeah, join us over there right now. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. See you on the Twitch.
You've been watching Jammin' Adult Badass. Take care, everybody.